Hi folks, how are we doing? I'm in the van, as you can probably tell. I've driven up. I'm on holiday at the moment, but my wife is working and the kids are at school, so I thought I'd just come up and spend the night up here. But we're almost on the hillside here. We're quite high up, and I'm having some company tomorrow. We're going to head up a hill, one of the highest hills in Scotland, and I've been up it loads of times before. But the weather forecast is, well, yeah, don't expect spectacular spectacular views. It might be dramatic. That might be the word for it tomorrow. It might be dramatic. So yeah, I'm just chilling in the van tonight. Doing a bit of reading. What am I reading? Yeah, reading this book here. Absolutely fantastic. If you're into hill walking in Scotland, or into Skye and the Coolin, that's well worth it. It's called The Black Coolin by Callum Smith. I recommend it. So yeah, I'm just going to chill for the next hour or two, then get my head down and then up in the dark tomorrow, and get the coffee on, ready for my hill walking partner tomorrow. So yeah, I spent a few hours reading a few more chapters of the book, and then it was lights out, time for some sleep, all ready to have an adventure the next day. After a good night's sleep, I was up nice and early the following morning, and Jerry appeared in the landy, and we set about getting ready to go up the hill. I still had to get the van packed down, get the roof down and get my gear ready, but before long we were all packed up, the rucksack was put on, and we were setting about heading up the hill. The weather had been relatively mild, and certainly when we left the car park it wasn't cold, there wasn't much of a breeze, and things were looking okay. There was some residual snow which had fallen the week before, but we were in a warm sector, and we weren't expecting many views, but yeah, there was still a fair bit of snow lying on the ground. But at this point we weren't too cold. It was quite comfortable walking. It didn't take too long before we reached the cloud level. It was typical conditions for this sort of weather. Low, murky, mild, horrible conditions, and the snow at this level was pretty soft, and we were just following footsteps up that had been left there in the previous days. It was pretty manky, to be honest with you. To your right, because the microphone's on my left, yeah. Ooh. Yeah, right, so hi folks. As you can see, a wee bit of snow, but yeah, it's not exactly a wide coverage, is it, Jerry?
The next person that tells me this is going to be the best winter ever.
Daily record. I think they were talking about a polar ice bomb, whatever the hell that is. But
I think it's you buy it in the ice cream shop.
Oh, do you? A cone.
Polar ice bomb.
You can eat it.
Ice bomb, please.
Anyway, so we're out and about in typical Scottish conditions, mank, yeah, and we're possibly, when we get a bit higher up, we'll get a bit more snow cover. This is just old snow that fell over a week ago. It's a bit soft, it's a bit mild. There's been a sort of rolling line of Atlantic lows coming in. Succession, not a concession.
Concession.
I wish it was
a wee shop at the bottom of the hill.
Where you can buy the polar ice bomb. Anyway, so in terms of where we are, we've chosen a hill which has got a nice path all the way up it, so we don't have to really worry too much about navigation. But we're still got to be careful, but especially if there's snow on the ground. But at the moment, we're trudging up.
And we've never done it this week.
Not this week, yeah. Well, it's funny you should say that.
Yeah.
You might have seen a video in the last few months where I might have been up here before in slightly different conditions. But anyway, shall we go up into the bank and see what changes? So off we headed, and the slopes of the mountain started to get a bit steeper, and we were gaining a bit of height quite quickly at this point. And as soon as we did that, although the air temperature was still quite mild, the wind started to pick up and it got pretty blustery pretty quickly. So we decided it was time to stop and get our hard shells on and our goggles on and our hats, and we also decided to get the ice axe out at this point, because as the slopes got steeper and higher, there was more snow lying, and we were having to negotiate steeper slopes with, albeit soft snow, but still snow that could be quite slippy. So the axes came out and were very useful. After a trudge up with no views at all, we were approaching the summit of the first Munro, Ben Glass, which sits at over 1100 metres. And it was the rain was kind of switching between hail, sleet and freezing rain at this point, and yeah, it wasn't pleasant, but we didn't stop for long in Ben Glass and headed back down towards the Bilach before the next ascent up to the highest mountain of the day. Well, Jerry, this is turning into more of a mountaineering expedition now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite gnarly. It's good. No complaints.
So the last bit of camera, you would have seen us on the top of the first Munro, which is Ben Glass, if you hadn't already recognised that from the pitiful cairn or jumble of stones that's there. So we've come down now. We're just at the Bilach between Ben Glass and Ben Lors. We've got about 200 metres ascent up to the top now. At the moment it's probably hovering around about freezing, maybe just above freezing, because the ground isn't frozen here. But the forecast is for it to be about -1 on the top, which isn't too bad for a Scottish winter. But when you add in the wind chill, it was suggesting -9, -10. So glad we've got the right gear.
Yeah.
What is usually a nice wee amble in the summer changes completely in this sort of stuff, doesn't it?
Shorts and flip-flops.
Shorts and flip-flops would have been ideal. Anyway, need to concentrate now, so we're going to head up. I'm going to put the big camera away, so it's all action camera gear from here, because my camera's getting soaked. Shall we crack on?
Let's go!
Let's go! Whew. So it wasn't only the camera gear that was getting soaked. By this point we were pretty sodden. That mixture of rain, hail and sleet was penetrating through the layers. Anyway, we started the ascent up Ben Lors, and to start with it was very similar to the ascent up Ben Glass, blowy with sort of soft wet snow, but as we got higher we soon reached the freezing point, and that soft wet snow had soon become a frozen, crusty, slippy snowpack, and the rain and sleet turned more to driving hail and snow at this point, which peppered your face, and it was quite sore, it was stingy. So yeah, just one of those days in the mountains where you pull the hood down. But anyway, as we got on and headed up the mountain, it was soon time to get the next bit of gear out. It was getting a bit icy, and the slopes weren't getting any less steep, so we stopped, dug a wee seat to get comfy and get the crampons out and on our feet, which were essential for the last part of the ascent. As you can see, the conditions weren't ideal, and getting the crampons on is always a painful experience. I often choose to try and keep my gloves on, but for the sake of speed I took them off at this point and got them on pretty quickly. And yeah, that spindrift was whipping round our bodies as we got the backpacks back on for the final pull up to the summit. To say it was unpleasant would be an understatement. Typical Scottish weather high in the mountain. after battling the elements a bit further, we were glad to see the summit of Ben Lawers, which sits at 1,214 metres. And it just goes to show you how much the conditions can change. It was full on winter here and really not a place to linger too long. So we were on the summit for a little while. We got a few more bits and bobs out, a quick photograph at the summit, and then we decided it was time to get back down, try and get down to the Bielach and out of the wind before we could decide on what we were going to do. So we reached the Bielach and it was time to take the spikes off. The snow was pretty soft down here. It was below the freezing level and they're not ideal in these conditions. So it was off with the crampons, and I don't know if you can make out from this footage, but I was pretty well sodden. Although I've got waterproofs on, they were doing their best to be not waterproof. And it was just time to head down the mountain at this point. I didn't do too much B-roll because, I was feeling a bit tired and wet. Right guys, I'm back in the van. Really sorry I didn't do more pieces to camera up there, but it was pretty wild. I had to put the big camera away because it was just getting wet. In fact, I think this bit of filming now might be a bit misty because the camera's a bit wet, but it was pretty full on up at the top there. It was worse than we'd expected. The forecast wasn't too bad today. It was saying 20 to 30 mile an hour winds, which was fine, but when you put into the equation that kind of snow, sleet, hail, driving rain, and it just soaked us through. It was it was a pretty tough day. Tougher than expected, shall we say. Maybe not tough, but it just shows you, because back here at the car park, it's absolutely fine. It's very benign, quite mild, but if I was to bump into somebody there and say to them, it's pretty wild on the top of the mountain, and show them pictures, they probably wouldn't believe me. So it just shows you have to be wary. The weather at this level is completely different to the weather up there. So we endured it. It was just one of those days where it wasn't cold in terms of the air temperature, albeit I think I said earlier on the forecasted temperature was -1 on the summit, but with the wind chill it was way down, and the fact that we were damp, it was humid, that's what really gets you. Give me -10, dry cold any day over hovering about freezing, wet, everything soaked through. That's what gets you. It's just you're just damp. Anyway, I just thought I'd report back from the camper. I'm heated up now. I've had my coffee, had something to eat, and ready to go home. So thanks for watching. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next video.